My name is Eva. Who hasn't gone through difficult times? My dad was everything to me and my rock. It's just the two of us against the world ever since Clara died when I was a tiny child. He constantly emphasized the value of education and did his best to save every penny I needed to pursue my college degree. He would give me a wink and tell me, "You're going to make it, kiddo," while continuing to add little amounts of money to our tattered college fund jar. I gave him credence. Above all, I had faith in us. I enrolled at the nearby community college after high school with the goal of becoming well-known in the investment management industry. I got to know Max there. He was pleasant and unkempt in a way that somehow worked wonders on me. He was a member of my cohort. We hit it off right away, exchanging looks over lukewarm cafeteria coffee and laughs between lectures. Then the floor gave way under me. Dad died suddenly, without any prior notice. Our financial stability vanished as well, like a house of cards in a breeze. The college money proved to be more wishful than practical. In addition to missing Dad and his advice, I had to come to terms with the fact that my time as a college student was running out. With perseverance and scraps, I made it through my first year, but as the money dried up, I had to drop out. The flat, a modest 3-bedroom in a dilapidated area of town, was Dad's gift to me. Though little, it was home. On a cold evening, Max arrived to the flat with his hand tucked into the pockets of his worn pants. With a glance around the room where the wallpaper was softly peeling at the corners, he said, "You live here alone, Eva." "Yeah, just me now," I said, attempting to tamp down a particularly disobedient wallpaper strip. "It's not much, but it's what I've got." After observing me for a while, he moved in closer and clasped my hands. "Eva, let's get married. I want to look after you. Here, let's begin our lives together." Yes, it was abrupt, but why start now when nothing in my life had ever been planned? I responded, "Okay, Max," and it felt appropriate. Our wait was short. With only a few people present, the wedding took place in the municipal hall and was as simple as they come. Max's parents failed to appear. They thought I couldn't hear them, whispering that I was too plain and they'd never truly approved of me. They had chanted, "Not one of us." Yet Max held my hand and said, "I love you. That is all that is important." Following the ceremony, we strolled back to my current flat, with the pavement illuminated by the deep shadows created by the late afternoon light. Max broke open a bottle of the least expensive champagne available at the corner shop and gave each of us a shaky glass filled with frothy goodness. To us, he raised his glass in salute. With a taste of promise and fresh starts, the champagne fizzed on my tongue as I repeated the toast. Chapter 2. Assertions made. Max and I had a deal in which I would pay the bills and he would hit the books. After he finished college, it would be my chance to pursue the degree I abandoned when life became too difficult. Easy enough, huh? Though nothing is ever so simple, so's what I also believed. I had 2 jobs. During the day, I worked as a grocery store cashier, where I had to cope with long lineups and occasionally late customers. At night, I changed into a waitress uniform and worked as a server at a nearby restaurant, where I served late-night drifters and truckers lousy burgers and tepid coffee. Even though it was exhausting, I persevered because I knew that one day I would return through those college doors. Max, on the other hand, claimed to be knee-deep in his studies. With them, his demands increased. "When is dinner, Eva?" he would always grumble as soon as I dragged my tired body in the door. "I can't eat this fast food crap anymore. I need something decent like Clara used to make." I would bite back, throwing my keys on the table in a tired and angry manner. "Max, you should try cooking it yourself. I'm not your mother." He would frown and avert his eyes. "My goal in learning is to succeed in life. Maintaining a tidy home is the very least you could do." His words would ignite a fire in my chest, slicing through my fatigue. However, I would eke a response, worried about the rift it may create in our already brittle accord. Max's folks weren't very helpful. Compared to my diner-stained clothing and high school certificate, They were well educated and polished. They hardly ever recognized me, and when they did, it was always with a sly smile or a barely concealed criticism. "If you had completed your schooling, my love," Max's mother would remark, drinking her expertly prepared tea and peering over the rims of her glasses. Max did not support me. He simply followed along, taking in their words as if they were gospel. He would spend evenings there more and more, running away from our small apartment and all of the obligations that came with it. Max dropped another blow one evening while I was cleaning the grease from the diner under my fingernails. "I'm spending the night with my folks. Require a decent night's sleep and a genuine study space. I may have found the bathroom cupboard a bit too hard." "All right, fulfill your obligations." The words pierced me deeply, acting to express everything I was unable to express. I took comfort in my routines as the days stretched into months, as the monotonous work at my job let me forget about the growing annoyances at home. I went through the processes like a robot, scanning the objects, grinning, serving meals, cleaning up, rinsing, and repeating. After a very long night, I arrived home to find my flat vacant. "No, Max, no excuses. Just a heads up. Away to study. Ensure that tomorrow's meal is prepared." I creased the message, the sheet severing in my hand. I gave myself a time alone myself in the dark light of our kitchen to truly feel everything, the weariness, the loneliness, the boiling rage. I closed my eyes and leaned against the counter, trying not to cry aloud but letting a silent one slip out. Eventually, Max graduated after years of working 2 jobs and watched himself lose himself in his books. The news that Max had almost instantly been hired by a prominent firm was a breath of fresh air in our otherwise stressful existence. Compared to my regular tips at the cafe, his new employment came with a paycheck that felt like a lottery win. One evening, as I sat across from him at our tiny kitchen table, I could feel my excitement rising. I tried to keep my voice steady as I spoke, full of long-forgotten ambitions and goals. "So, with your new job, I was thinking it might be time for me to cut back at work and start looking at programs, to pick up where I left off," I said. Max remained staring at his plate. "Eva, it is beyond our means. You are aware how tight the budget is given the current state of affairs, and every penny must be accounted for." His remarks were echoed by the sharp sound of his fork clattering on the plate. Leaning back, I felt my heart soften but not give up. Maybe only the day shifts, but I could stick with one job. We would still be financially secure, and I could handle taking school at night. His voice was stern and dismissive as he shook his head. "Just put college out of your mind, Eva. Instead of increasing debt, we need stability. It isn't useful." That was the end of our talk, but the disagreement lingered in my mind for days. I became pregnant before I had a chance to investigate more. College was no longer a fantasy. Instead, our daughter Lily took precedence in my life. Although raising Lily was a delight, it also served as an additional link binding me to obligations and routines that I hadn't chosen on my own. Like the goods I stocked, my goals were put on hold while I kept working at the grocery store. Max's critiques of my shelved education extended to my parenting as well. "Eva, you're not doing this correctly. She should be taught good manners, not this thing you're trying to teach her," Max would add, without taking his eyes from his phone. I recalled cuddling up to Lily and making her promises in whispers that I was starting to question my ability to keep. "It's all right, sweetie. Clara is here," I would say. Max's parents became increasingly interested as Lily matured. Their impact outweighed mine. Their posh preschool was paid for, and their grandparental pride was on display at every school function. Max made a new rule very clear one evening. It would be preferable if Eva skipped the school functions. Families should live up to the expectations of the instructors. Lily's chances cannot be ruined by us. Those remarks stung, a smack disguised as sympathy for my father. So what should I do now? Just remain at home and act as though I don't have a kid who is developing, discovering things I don't teach her, and changing into a person I hardly know? All he said was, It's for the best. Is apathy the last straw that crushed our once shared hopes? As the years turned, Max's comments gained weight, the type that draws you down rather than keeps you anchored in place. His stern instructions to our daughter Lily created an impression on her, instilling in her a contempt for me, her mother. Don't bother instructing Eva what to do, Eva. You talk, and she listens to me. When I proposed that Lily may set the table one evening, Max angrily said, "It's for her own good." His statements were always like this in front of Lily. With a sinking heart, I witnessed my young daughter's eyes grow as harsh as her father's. Lily used to yell at me, "You don't know anything, Clara," whenever I asked for assistance around the home. Her voice echoed her dad's, every utterance a jab. I made an attempt to connect with her, to fill the growing void between us with mother-daughter conversations, but all I could do was watch her recede more into her own world. A picture that Max and his dad created. Something cruelly brought everything into light one miserable day. Lily's pals were over, and our house was filled with laughing and happy chatter. I ran into them in the hallway when I was cleaning. Lily paused, her gaze flitting between her pals and myself. I was ready to say hello as I smiled and wiped my hands on my apron, but Lily interrupted before I could finish my sentence. "Oh, this is just our housekeeper." Her pals nodded, scarcely looking at me twice as they padded inside Lily's spotless room, which was off limits to people like me. The adolescent giggles were muted and felt like needles in my chest as the door snapped shut. I went back to the kitchen and leaned against the refrigerator while crying, despite my determination not to let this destroy me. Not some unappreciated servant in my own house. I was her mother. I faced Max that night, my voice steady yet trembling. "How could you allow her to treat me this way? Our daughter." She referred to me as the housekeeping today. Max continued to stare at his paper. "Perhaps she would appreciate you more if you didn't dress the part. You're always wiping with those rags. What are your expectations?" His remarks cut through any remaining barriers and hurt. "Max, I'm trying. You and your folks are instilling hatred in her against me while I'm attempting to make this a home." He folded his newspaper neatly, sneering. "Eva, you have to get over your oversensitivity. She is growing up in a world that is distinct from your own. She must blend in." Restless nights ensued. Max's distance, his parents' callousness, and now Lily's rejection presented a harsh picture that sent my thoughts spiraling. I felt like an alien in my own life, reduced to the position of a quiet supplier who goes unnoticed and unloved. Lily was more and more embarrassed of me as I saw her mature into a teenager. Her remarks on my antiquated attire and basic etiquette struck a deeper chord because they repeated what Max had said. Her mother, who had given up everything to become invisible, was embarrassed to be seen with me. Though I had hoped it would be a turning point for something better, something gentler, turning 37 wasn't intended to be a big deal. I reserved a table at a classy downtown restaurant with a heart full of uncertain hope. A quiet party, just Max and Lily. Simple yet effective, something that might, just might, pull us back together for a night. Upon returning from work, the prospect of spending a peaceful evening with my loved ones lifted my mood. When I first entered the flat, it was extremely quiet. Sitting in the living room with their backs to the television, Max and Lily appeared as though they were expecting terrible news. "I have a surprise for you. I reserved a table for the three of us to celebrate my birthday at Marcelo's for dinner," I added, my voice upbeat, pushing joy over the boundaries of my tiredness. Max flicked off the television and gave me a questioning glance as a small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Eva, seriously. You think we want to go out and celebrate with you? A dropout? What would we even talk about?" Max's words were casual, but they cut deep, his smirk turning into a sneer. "Yeah, Clara, it's kind of embarrassing. You wouldn't even know which fork to use," Lily added, her words echoing her father's disdain. I felt my face flush, the sting of their words like a slap. "I just thought we could be a family for tonight." With a bitter, sarcastic chuckle, Max said out, A family where you're embarrassing yourself. Thank you, not at all. Well, this is a present from me to you." With a dramatic flourish, he got up, went to his briefcase and took out an envelope, threw it upon the coffee table. I grabbed it up, shaking hands, confused. It was an application for divorce. This is your gift." With a broken voice, I asked. "Yes, you may think of yourself as free of us. Eva, we're done. Lily and I are moving out together." With a cold, calculating voice, he replied, "You can keep this place." Lily simply nodded and got up to go follow her dad. "I'd want to live with my father. Mother, I can't be seen with you. It's simply too awkward." With icy precision, they gathered up their belongings. I stood there, dumbfounded, watching as my entire world fell apart, not just the tangible parts of our existence, but also the final shreds of love and relational illusion. Without saying farewell, they walked out of the empty flat, the door shutting with a quiet click that resounded like a gunshot. The divorce process was nasty, clinical, and expeditious. Max's parents gave stern, critical testimony about my shortcomings, portraying me as an ignorant, unsuitable mother. Lily too spoke, her words practiced and her voice calm. "I wish to move in with my father. He's more ideal for me." As I listened to the long list of my alleged failings while seated in that antiseptic courtroom, I felt as though something inside of me was breaking, or perhaps coming together. An insight solidified into determination. Their remarks had stopped hurting me since they were all strangers to me. It was just the two of me. But maybe I did need that independence. I was certain of one thing. I had to demonstrate my greater abilities, if only to myself. That unwavering determination brought me back to the college doors I had left behind years before. I re-enrolled, older than the majority of my classmates and with a fierceness that only adversity can confer on one. I employed instructors and struggled with financial models and investing theories throughout the nights. I became dizzy from the effort. It was a minefield on social media. Occasionally, a picture of Lily, Max, and that woman, Max's new partner, would appear. They appeared content and carefree as they lived it up in a chic downtown condominium that exuded wealth. Seeing them so happy as I was trying to put myself back together hurt like hell. But I turned that into fuel and didn't let it bring me down. Every image and every post challenged me more. I used my hurt and rage as fuel for my studies, using my resentment as inspiration. By the time graduation day arrived, I had changed from the beginning. "Eva, you've got what it takes." In our last meeting, Dr. Henson, my favorite professor, advised me to don't let anyone tell you differently. His words soothed the sore spots on my pride. His endorsement helped me get a job at a reputable company, and I entered the banking industry determined to succeed. Another battlefield I was now well prepared to face was the business sector. For a brief while, I was simply another employee. I worked my way up from the bottom level to department head in 3 years. The company's future was being shaped by my actions, and my name was on an office door. I redesigned my life in tandem with my profession. My beat-up old automobile was exchanged in for a shiny new one that buzzed beneath my fingers like a promise. My apartment came next, a high-rise with views of the city that twinkled like the stars I was aiming for, going from a humble to a contemporary one. Purchasing new clothing was about more than simply fashion. It was for protection. Every item, from a chic dress to a smart suit, was picked to showcase the new me, the strong, capable entrepreneur. Previously always held back in a functional ponytail, my hair was now styled in fashionable patterns that showed my attention to detail or fell in attractive waves. The magnitude of my metamorphosis was known only to my closest pals. "Eva, you're carrying out your destiny." One day, over coffee, my friend Jenna informed me, her eyes wide with the changes she was noticing. "It's like you finally found your stage," she said. "Yes, I suppose I have," I said as I sipped my cappuccino. All of the suffering brought about by Max and Lily vanished from view, becoming only a minor plot point rather than the central one in my narrative. One late night, I was looking through job advertisements when I came across one that made my heart skip a beat. The firm where my ex-husband Max worked was the one offering a department head post. I applied, partly because it was so daring, and partly because I had a deep-seated urge to prove myself. The next week was the interview. I entered the room with the confidence of a woman who had everything to prove and nothing to lose. 3 interviewees made up the panel. Each was more pleased than the previous as we covered a wide range of topics, including financial plans and market trends. By the end, they appeared sincere in their excitement about what I had to offer. Well, Eva, I have to admit, it's nice to see someone with such a distinct vision and in-depth understanding. With a sincere smile on his face, the senior interviewer said, "We'd be lucky to have you on board." "I'm grateful," I answered in a calm and determined manner, eager to get started right away. My first day seemed like a scene from a movie. There was a round of courteous applause and warm smiles as I was presented to my new crew. That is, until they saw Max's face. The look of horror on his face was enough to power the metropolis for several hours. His mouth was slightly open, and his eyes were big, as if he had seen a ghost. Mr. Reynolds, the company's CEO, appeared to find the situation humorous. With a pat on my shoulder, he said, "I hope everyone will make sure Eva gets all the help she needs. I am confident that she will take our department to new heights and that she comes highly recommended." Max responded in a less than polite manner. His voice angry yet quiet, he marched up to Mr. Reynolds as the room cleared. "I put in my application for this job. Why did she receive it? What's in her possession that I'm not?" Mr. Reynolds lifted an eyebrow, first at Max and then at me. "Max, the choice was made solely on the basis of merit. Eva has significantly more qualifications than you have, and she has a far better vision for the department. You might pick up a lot of knowledge from her. Take advice from her. I take it that this is some sort of joke." Max growled, raising his voice. "Max, this is not a joke." With a calm response, Mr. Reynolds said, "I suggest you change your attitude and concentrate on your own responsibilities." Max, humiliated, took an unexpected action. He grumbled something about a dumb employer, tossed his ID badge on the table, and walked out. Mr. Reynolds watched Max go, sighing and shaking his head. "I apologize to Eva for it. I'll take care of it now. Why don't you begin working with your group now?" I watched Max walk down the corridor and nodded, a tiny contented grin flickering on my lips. His enraged feet seemed to me like beautiful music. I heard Mr. Reynolds talking on the phone later. He did really resign. No, not after this. I'm unable to endorse him favorably. The remainder of the day passed in a whirl of planning meetings and introductions. But one thing was constant in my thoughts throughout it all. Justice had been served, in a perverted sense. Max had underestimated me, as he always did. But I had prevailed this time. Max's career took a sharp turn for the worst when he stormed out of the office that day, and I never would have predicted it. Through common connections, rumors circulated that Max's newest lover had ejected him and Lily from her opulent apartment. These people were eager to share the information with me. They were so desperate that they had to move back in with Max's parents. I kept thinking about how the powerful had fallen. During this turbulent period, my door was visited by Lily, who was by then a college student and just as demanding as she had been raised to be. She gave a soft little whistle. "Whoa, Clara, you've really improved. I guess it worked out for you to dump Dad." Although her tone was kind, there was a hint of sharpness that made me cautious. "Lily, what brings you here?" She strolled in and settled into my luxurious couch as like she was the owner. "Well, things are a little tight at Grandpa's, and I realize that you're wealthy, stylish, and intelligent today. Perhaps I could move in here, but obviously I'd need a good allowance." I really looked at her, and I could see how much Max had influenced the way she carried herself. I was hurt, but there was no denying the insight it provided. "I believe you ought to go, Lily. I refuse to be exploited in this manner by you or anybody else." Tears filled her cheeks, but they didn't move me the way they once had. Her rage erupted when her cries failed to convince me. She said, "You're just selfish, like you always were," and rushed out. Her final remarks stung like a bee in the sea of my flat. Over the next weeks, I received tidbits of news. Unable to handle his damaged ego, Max had taken to drinking, and Lily had relocated to a different city, maybe in an attempt to achieve the independence she so much wanted. For me, success and fresh starts were the norm in my life. I got to know Michael, a coworker whose kind nature and silent power stood in stark contrast to Max's bellicose and vicious demeanor. Our friendship eventually turned into love, and we were married in a modest, happy ceremony in front of everyone who genuinely cared about us. After giving the turbulent voyage some thought, I saw that I had emerged stronger, wiser, and more empathetic. I had lost a family, but I had also found myself and, with it, a chance for a real, meaningful life and love. With a sense of readiness for whatever was ahead, I knew that I had not only survived but also flourished, writing a victory story that was uniquely mine.